started arresting people for creating public disturbance. And then they changed it to praying in public without a legal right because it was private property. When we were released, we were hungry, but we had to give up all of our money. So we were walking around looking for a place where we can get something cheap to eat. And we see a diner, it turned out to be a black diner. And we go in, and then we start looking through our pockets and such to see how much money we've got, to see whether we can buy one hamburger or two of them. And the counterman looks at us, and then at the top of his lungs yells, "Hey, these are our rabbis." Well, I had one of the best fried chicken dinners that I've ever had in my life.
Okay, so I find myself with
Merrill Shapiro, Rabbi Merrill Shapiro, president of the St. Augustine Jewish Historical Society.
So today here at this small little theater in Flagler College, I think it's the Gamache-Koger Theater, you're showing a DVD?
That's our signing. DVD was made 2 years ago on the 50th anniversary, on June the 17th and 18th, the 50th anniversary of the largest mass arrest of rabbis in U.S. history. It took place here in St. Augustine, Florida. Martin Luther King had called upon his friend, Rabbi Israel Dresner, a pulpit rabbi in Springfield, New Jersey, to get as many rabbis down here as possible to augment the St. Augustine movement, both to integrate St. Augustine and rid it of the insidious racism as best they could, but also to keep the civil rights movement on the front page of newspapers in light of the fact that the filibuster of the Civil Rights Act of 1994 was ongoing in the U.S. Senate.
And of those rabbis that came here in the 60s, how many are left? Do you know?
We know exactly. There are, 6 were here. 2 were unable to come, so that makes 80. So most are gone.
Okay, and so the DVD we're watching today is basically what then?
On the 50th anniversary, 2 years ago, here in this building in the Virginia room of the Ringhaver Student Center, we held a forum. The 6 rabbis sat in the front. One by one, they explained why they came to St. Augustine. And they were genuinely concerned about snipers and violence against them. But as Rabbi Fogel and the others say, they could not live with themselves. They could not look themselves in the mirror. They could not sleep at night by staying away. That would not happen. So the 6 of them explained that, and then took questions and answers, and we'll see the video of the explanations.
If you look at media coverage of the St. Augustine movement, 1963, 1964, the activities that these gentlemen participated in, the prior activism of the African American community and its supporters. St. Augustine was at the center of world history. French publications, Italian publications, coverage in the African continent, coverage in Latin America. We have found articles from Argentina, from Brazil, from Russia, from China, from Ghana. This city was at the centerpiece of the questions, the greatest questions of the day that have already been raised. The struggle for justice, the struggle for equality, for human rights, for dignity, and above all, the question of how do we relate to each other as individuals, as groups, as families, with their own distinctive histories and heritages of suffering, of survival, of pain, of transcendence, of getting together, right?
As one of my professors once said, your questions are better than my answers. Who is a hero? And a hero is a person who supports an action but cannot take the action themselves. What you need to learn is to take the next step. The next step brought you here today. Where you go from here, that is the question that I ask.
I received a letter from Dr. King in June of 1964. He dictated the letter from jail here in St. Augustine. He dictated it to his secretary who came to visit him through the bars, and she sent the letter on to me. Dr. King and I knew each other already because I had been arrested several times before. Going back to, I was arrested in Tallahassee in 1961 in a freedom ride. So I've had experience in the state of Florida. And Dr. King asked me to bring a whole batch of rabbis down to be arrested in St. Augustine. And Dr. King said that this was the most brutal place he'd ever been in. And he'd gone through, you know, from the Montgomery bus boycott, 55, 56, he'd been through dozens and dozens kind of thing of experiences. 4 days later, we were able to recruit the 17 of us, 16 rabbis and the then director of the Commission on Social Action of Reform Judaism, Al Horsman, and we came down and were duly arrested at what was then called Monson's, I think, hotel or something. Let me conclude with an anecdote that Dr. King used to tell in the last 2.5 years of his life, 65, and as he left the polling booth, he was greeted by by a journalist who asked him what it felt like. And his response was the following, as Dr. King would quote it: "I ain't what I ought to be. I ain't what I want to be. I ain't what I'm going to be. But thank God, I ain't what I was."
I had been ordained only 2 weeks before. I was in jail. And as my mother put it, so first he's ordained, and 2 weeks later he's in jail. Being in this beautiful jail is something that does affect our lives. Clearly, my colleagues have particularly, that's been the case. Why did I go? I've been involved in civil rights activity as a rabbinic student in Cincinnati for most of my years there. And I'd spent my last year as a student rabbi in Jasper, Alabama, which was a suburb of Birmingham. I arrived 2 weeks after the Baptist church was bombed. It was the year that Kennedy was assassinated. And while there, I not only got to know my own congregants, but people in the black community as well, which I visited each time I was there, thanks to someone who worked at the hotel where I was staying. To be back here is seeing all that has happened here for the good. And as you've all noted, things that still need to be done. As I think it is incredible. I mean, when I first heard that there was something called the St. Augustine Jewish Historical Society, that was just a miracle. So there's a lot to be done. You all know that very well. We know that, and I hope, despite our age, we can still, with you, keep fighting those causes. Thank you for that.
Thank you, all of you. This is an amazing event, amazing moment in my life, and to gather with you and with my colleagues who were there, it's a gewalt. It's just like, oh. What is the beauty of the Reform movement in that way? It was that we are Jews, but we must embrace, as the conservative rabbi here does as well. Times are changing. We must embrace the unity of all beings. My God is not a God on a throne. My God exists. We all have an opportunity as cells of God being in consciousness to find out who we really are. And that's what brought us all to St. Augustine.
here I was in Atlantic City. The telegram was read. And it took me maybe 8 seconds to say, of course. Now, I was with Cy Dresner and B.T. Rubenstein in Albany, Georgia. So I already had the experience. But that isn't why I went. I went because I should have. It was as simple as that. I'm a Jewish guy. What did Jews do? Jews show up. That when there is evil, you fight it. When there is something wrong in this world, you do it. Dick Levy here was just brilliant. I can't top that. Because he said for all of us, what do Jews do? They do. So I have a question to ask all of you. What would you do? Now, what will we do? We aren't heroes. We just did. But it's now 50 years later. What would you do? Would you be on that walk with us from the church? That scary, miserable, awful walk. I can't tell you how I lost my hair on that walk. Was there something in our life that we did that we are so proud of? And yes, we are. Every single one of the 6 of us. So if I have a message, and I am so proud to be here, geez, I love it. I just love it. I'm so proud to be here. But next time, join me, will you?
So, why did I go? I'll tell you, I went because when I was 16, I went to the Jewish Youth Conference. Rabbi Ed Zarin, he stands in front of us, and I remember him always. And he wove together what it meant to be a Jew and what it meant to be an American. What it meant to carry 2 traditions of liberty within your religious cultural framework. That commitment not only to the freedom for Jews that we experienced at the Exodus from Egypt a long time ago, but the freedom that all human beings were entitled to. The ability to find fulfillment of ourself, to find the maximum, what shall I say, abilities, concerns, values that lie within every human person. That became something part of me. I knew Thomas Jefferson, I knew Moses, and I knew the Statue of Liberty. And I combined those 2 forces in me to do what I could do to improve this world. And the first thing that happens is this rabbi over here gets up and reads a telegram from Martin Luther King. Come walk with us in St. Augustine. That was the call that I heard, and I answered positively. I have a final story to tell you. It was about, I think maybe 15 years ago. It was after the service where I gave my big sermon again about why we went. A gentleman who's a representative of St. Paul, Minnesota in the Minnesota State Legislature came up to me. Remember me? I'm Richard Cohen. I did sort of remember. He'd been in the confirmation class the year that I was arrested. He's taken a great interest as a Jewish legislator in the passage of social justice legislation. He always would get actively involved. And whenever a reporter or anyone would ask him, he said, ask him, why are you so engaged in these social justice seeking acts of the legislature? And he says, I always tell him, it's because my rabbi went to jail in St. Augustine.
We fool ourselves by thinking that racism is a thing of the past.
Right.
That prejudice is a thing of the past. And, you know, it was a quote of Martin Luther King. Where do we go from here?
Right.
We can't stop. We have to continue to work to build a world that provides equal opportunity for everyone.